Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Marketer Live. We are here today with Claire Graves, president over at the Webby Awards. And again, special thanks to the Webby Awards in general for being a sponsor for this program. They are equally as invested as MarketerHire is in the future of work. What does it look like? Where are we all going to be working? At home, in the office, and co-working space? We don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. In particular, on Marketer Live, we are chatting with folks like Claire about how they build scalable, effective, really successful marketing teams and creative teams, especially, kind of during a worldwide pandemic, but also for the future, right? What does this look like? How do we think about how to organize these kinds of things. So Claire, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. First question, let's honestly just start at the beginning. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the marketing organization at the Webbies looked like when you first joined?
I thought I could even start a little bit back from there and give you an idea about what marketing is at the Webby Awards.
Yeah, let's do that.
A little bit different to marketing a brand or marketing an agency or something like that. So we sort of have like two audiences, and we reach those audiences at different times, which I think is pretty lucky, and it makes marketing like a really interesting challenge. From September through to February, we're really focused on B2B marketing, and we're marketing our call for entries. So inviting people to come and participate in the Webby Awards. And then as soon as we start talking about our nominees, which we've just done, we launched our nominees this week, we're really much more of a consumer marketing brand. So we still, of course, have a huge portion that we are talking to B2B companies and marketing a B2B brand thing, but we're also talking to a really massive audience of people that are interested in the best stuff online as well. So it's much more of a consumer challenge.
Okay, so how do you go about hiring a marketing team that can both market to B2B prospects, one half of the year, and then the other half of the year market to B2C folks? Typically, those two marketing skills are like couched separately. How do you build a team around that?
We don't have a huge marketing team. Actually, we don't really technically have like a marketing team. We have a kind of like decentralized team where everybody on the team is thinking about marketing at the same time. And so we kind of like make sure that we're on track in terms of like what the messaging is and like who we're trying to reach and what we're trying to say to them. And then everybody kind of knows exactly what they're doing. So the woman that runs editorial really understands that, she really gets it at each moment of the year. The same with the woman that's running social media. And then all of the producers and everybody else that are kind of working on the Webby Awards really gets how to do it, and then also how to analyze the results as well.
Let's talk a little bit about KPIs then. So if nobody is necessarily a marketer, but everybody is responsible for like certain parts of marketing within their individual role, what metrics do each one of those roles end up reporting out on?
Well, it all depends on the role, really. So like the social media person is really thinking about engagement and followers and, the audience and the community and what's happening with the community. And editorial is thinking about like the traffic to the website and what features are performing the best and how emails are being opened and all of that stuff. And then everybody else is kind of like, reaching for goals that we've set. And at the end of the day, it's really like for the show, we're really looking at how many people are watching the show, how many people are coming to the website to watch the show. And for call for entries, we're all focused on how many people are entering the Webby Awards.
It sounds like, and I'm lucky too, because I work with your team. And so I get this kind of like back end view into how some of it comes together. So this question might be a little biased as a result of that, but it sounds like, also from my experience working with y'all, project management and organization is super important. And even the way you're describing it now, where you're like, okay, we don't have a marketing team, but we do have all of these different roles responsible for certain parts of marketing, everything has to be incredibly integrated if that's going to work. Can you talk to me a little bit about project management systems and how that works at the organization?
Everybody sort of has a little bit of a producer hat at the Webby Awards. So they kind of know how to like start a project and then execute it from the beginning to the end. And as part of that, we're always just thinking about how to launch it in the right way to get people to do what we want them to do, and then how to kind of continue getting people to watch and listen and visit and all of those things as well. And everybody's kind of like on board with all of those things. Right. But we definitely do have, we have a creative director who is like super smart and understanding how to position things and how to get the messaging right. And then he will work with everybody else to kind of get that right and out into the world.
Yeah. How do you, like, I love this idea of hiring people who all can kind of wear that producer hat. I actually have like a marketing hat right here that I like put on. So I'm like wearing my marketing hat, but I like that idea of that producer hat, which is somebody who knows how to start a project and get it across the line. In fact, one of my favorite bosses of all time once said that, the best skill a marketer can have is the ability to get something across the line. How do you interview for that? How do you find people who can do that reliably? Like what does that look like?
I mean, that's always a challenge, isn't
it? Yeah, for sure. Do you have any like interview questions or anything you've learned?
I mean, I have a couple of interview questions that I always ask. And the first one is, what motivates you? Because I like to understand how people are motivated and how they fit within a team, and, what gets them up and gets them working and what makes them have fun at work. The other question is, the other thing that we like to know, and I think most of us at the Webby Awards like to know this, is just to kind of gauge the understanding of what's happening on the internet at the moment, because we're obviously very focused on internet culture and how the industry is changing and what's kind of happening online right now. And to fit within the culture of what's going on at the Webbies, you sort of have to know those types of things as well so that you can keep up.
Well, I mean, and it kind of seems like part of internet culture right now in particular serves y'all well, which is a lot of people know how to produce content for the internet.
100%.
Yeah. Well, so talk to me, let's back up a little bit. Talk to me about like the first hire you made at the Webbies and why that hire in particular.
Okay. Well, I have been working at the Webby Awards for a very long time. This is my 11th show. It's my 10th year and my 11th show.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But it also means that it was a different marketing world when I first began. And I am also trying to remember exactly the first hire.
It has been a long time. Well, I mean, even how has like the idea of marketing changed at the Webbies over that time?
Well, so I think that the first hire that we made was a dedicated social media person. Mm-hmm. And, that was probably 9 years ago. Yeah. So when I first started at the Webby Awards, social media was definitely a thing. It was a thing, but it wasn't necessarily like brands going out and marketing themselves online. It was more like kind of like fun, and everybody was kind of like using it and growing. Instagram didn't exist, or it had just started, but brands were not on Instagram. Brands were only starting to kind of be on Twitter, and they had Facebook pages. And so we hired a social media person to kind of like take everything that we did and make sure that it was like shown in the right way on social media. And they managed Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr.
I remember the Tumblr days.
And we were like good on Tumblr. We were really good on Tumblr. But it also gave us the opportunity to kind of like be a little bit more playful with what we were doing online and kind of take everything that we did, like big tentpole campaigns, and get them to our audience in kind of interesting ways as well.
Right. I like that. And so now, how do y'all think about social media marketing?
Oh, social media marketing is obviously like the number one or the number two vehicle for marketing. We really are very focused on it as, brand perception and building an audience and building engagement in our community. And we do paid media on social as well. So that's mainly around the call for entries and making sure that people are reminded of deadlines and things like that.
Right. Well, because that's where people find their information to begin with.
Yeah, and are reminded.
We talked about this kind of a little bit at the beginning where we were talking about, the Webby's doesn't really have a structured marketing team, maybe in the way like some other brands or, B2B, D2C companies do, but a bunch of different people are responsible to think about marketing KPIs and make sure everyone is hitting goals. So in to the level that you are comfortable, if you are comfortable, could you kind of talk through the org chart at the Webby's and what that looks like, how it's structured, which roles report to which people, just kind of how the pipes, if you will.
Yeah, of course. For the Webby Awards team, which is kind of, focused on making everything for the show and for the call for entries happen and communicating with our audience, we have about to hire for a managing director role. So if anybody knows anybody who would like to be the managing director of the Webby Awards, give me a shout. And then they will be responsible for and managing an editor who does all of the writing for the website and then emails and features and our branded content. And then we have a social media person. We have account manager who communicates with our entrants. That's has an important marketing role as well. And then we have a producer who you work with closely, who manages our sponsors and the website and all of our kind of branded partnerships and partners as well.
Yeah, nice. So it is a very small team. It is a big event with a very small team behind it, really pushing through.
Well, we also have a production department that works, and that's where our creative director sits with our executive producer, chief production officer, and they come up with the big tentpole campaign messages and ideas, and then help us create all of the assets and bring it to life, basically.
Yeah, nice. Well, so with a team that is relatively small, doing a lot of big things, how do you think through, full-time hires versus freelance help versus agency? What does that thought process look like as you're noticing hey, we need help. How do we get the help we need?
We're extremely data driven. So everything that we do is based on how we're growing and where the data is changing and how we see where we see growth coming in. Yeah. And if we have been successful in an area, then we start thinking about dedicated resource for that area. So I'll give you an example of that. Over the past few years, we have become really quite good at targeted email communications with Salesforce. And we have seen the results from it. And so towards the end of last year, we hired a dedicated CRM marketing person who works for the whole company, who is going to take us to the next level with that. And that's really because we've seen success.
Right. So for a lot of organizations, what you just described is kind of this chicken and egg situation, right? Which is okay, we want to invest in this channel, see if that channel will work, but sometimes you can't get investment for the channel until the channel proves out. So how do y'all think about, testing new channels and how do you set up that data-driven mindset and even those systems to be able to see, when something's hit enough of a tipping point to potentially bring someone in full time?
Well, so I think this is a kind of a little bit where folks like you all come in, because we'll see growth in an area and we will, be watching it and understanding it and seeing what's happening in the industry and decide whether that growth is valuable enough to start dedicating resource to it. And then oftentimes we'll hire a consultant or we'll get someone in for a contract period of time to prove that out. And then if it is successful, then we'll hire someone and bring on more resource, dedicated resource for it as well.
Yeah, no, that's smart. It keeps y'all really agile, makes the best use of the budget. It sounds like it makes the most sense to me. I will say, I told Claire before we went live that I was going to say this at the beginning and I didn't. You can ask questions, audience, this is to you. You can ask questions anytime you want. You don't have to wait till a certain moment. We have a couple rolling in, so I'm going to go ahead and ask this one now. So how do you keep the creative and production teams in sync with all the needs of all the different people at the Webbies? I mean, y'all do a lot, which is what this person said in the question, but y'all do so much. Like, what does that look like?
How do we keep them in sync? Well, I think it really is driven by the creative. So for example, I'll give you an example for this year's show, which we've just launched the creative. We launched the creative on Tuesday. And the creative is really around like the 25th annual Webby Awards. Connection is everything. Chief Production Officer and our creative director will present to everybody the idea and all of the thought process that went into the idea. And everybody will kind of understand it, ask questions, get on board with what we're doing and why that is the theme for the creative. And then from there, they will start working on their pieces of it and double check with the creative director and the team to make sure that it's on track and it makes sense and it's part of everything that we want it to be. And then, it kind of goes into the world. And if it goes into the world and it's a little bit wrong, then we'll adjust it and get it right. And, we'll
how far in advance do y'all start doing that design process and showcasing that to people? Because again, there's a lot of moving parts. There's editorial, there's all the actual like making of all the designs. Like what does that like production cycle look like?
I would like to say that we work really far in advance, but we don't necessarily do that. You're
trying to stay relevant.
Exactly. The internet moves so fast that you have to keep up with it, otherwise it feels old very quickly. Well, we're really lucky in that we get to work with amazing creative partners. With that kind of brand that we get to work with some of our favorite winners and some of our favorite Webby nominees. So of course we have to work in advance with them to get it right. So it's usually about a month or 2 months before we launch. We've kind of got a really good idea of what the creative looks like and how to get it out into the world.
Yeah. Well, so we have one more question from an attendee, and I promise attendee I will get to that question here soon, but I want to ask this one first because I think it like helps us get to your question here in a second, which is, as you mentioned, Claire, y'all do, B2B marketing for part of the year to get a bunch of submissions for brands' best work. And as a result, y'all see so much of the best work on the internet. I mean, I went through even just your People's Choice stuff and I was blown away, right? I'm like, I am not doing enough, clearly, which is a good way to feel. But how does seeing that much really creative kind of best of the best marketing, how does that, affect what you look for in marketing candidates that you're looking to hire either full-time or on that freelance or consultant basis?
I mean, I think it's really good because it keeps us more creative and it kind of keeps us, really understanding like who's ahead of the curve and what is ahead of the curve. And we are always really excited to work with our winners and work with our nominees. So as an example, this year we're working with Media Monks to create our show website, and we're working with Camp Grizzly to do the creative for it. But when we're hiring people, of course, we're always extremely excited to talk to people that come from our nominees and come from our winners, but even people that kind of really understand and get why things win and why things are nominated is important to us as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I'm going to roll into this attendee question then, which is, what is your favorite marketing campaign that you've done for the Webby Awards, or that you've seen done at the Webby Awards over the years?
That sounds like something that someone from the Webby Awards has asked that question. You know what? I'm pretty excited about this year's campaign. I think this year's campaign is like a really kind of important and smart one for the Webby Awards, because it's been like a really shitty year, right? It's been like, you know, it's been a journey. The whole year's been a journey. And last year we also had, just for the Webby Awards, we also just gone into lockdown, and you know, I think our show was probably one of the first virtual shows. But this year, you know, it's the 25th annual Webby Awards. Connection is everything. And I think we can all agree that we would be nowhere if we didn't have the internet this year. And not only is it connection like that, the internet, that these computers are connected to the infrastructure of the internet, but it's also that we've been able to uplift each other and stay together as a community. And I think that that's like so important, and that's what we think our winners represent as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the winners, I saw this in the People's Choice Awards too, or the People's Choice nominees. Just so much of a lot of the really cool creative that came out in 2020 was inspired, of course, by the events of 2020, which was that we were stuck at home and, you know, not able to do, you know, the things we'd usually be able to do. So a lot of those pieces really are very uplifting, very educational, very much connection driven. So I can very much see that. Going back real quick to the small team that you have and kind of how y'all think about, you know, adding additional roles, which is very data driven. What are some of the symptoms that you've learned to see over the years in terms of like, okay, a team member or the team in general is hitting bandwidth, and we might need additional headcount, whether that's full-time, whether that's freelance, whether that's an agency, right? But like, what are those kind of red flags that other managers, other marketing leaders might be able to spot?
Well, for us, we're a little bit different because I'm not the only person that has worked at the company for 10 years. I am actually probably like fifth or sixth in the longevity of people that have worked at the Webbies. So the senior leadership team have a pretty good understanding of the ebbs and flows of our cycle. And we can really try and gear resources up for when we're really busy. But I also try to make sure that I really understand the workload of everybody on the team as well. So try and do this every status meeting, but I ask how people's work-life balance is. And if the balance is off, then we work together to resource in the right way, to either move things around or hire resource to come in and help, because I personally love work, and I want everybody to love work as well. But if you're overworked, then it's not as fun a place to be.
Right. Well, and it affects your work too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Your output. Yeah. So have another question here from someone, and I feel like you've answered this in a kind of a couple different ways, but I like this question because I think it gets like right at it. But you know, how do you balance, or how does the team balance how much to market to people, right? Too much marketing is a turnoff. You know, what is that kind of balance in between it all?
Well, I think it just depends on the channel, right? Because you can definitely over email people, and we are extremely conscious of over emailing people. But I think you can up it and see how it goes on social media. And if you're not getting the engagement in the right way, then you can pull it down and make the decision about what is resonating and what's working, what's getting engagement. And the same with kind of paid advertising as well. You don't want to do too much paid advertising. So you just see how the data is and how it's performing. And if you're doing too much, then you pull it back as well.
Right. I love that. All of your answers go back to data, which really does support the statement you made earlier around everything y'all do is very data driven, which it should be. I mean, what What tools, if you don't mind me asking? Sounds like Salesforce is a tool that y'all rely on heavily. Is there anything else y'all are using to measure impact that helps you make these decisions so effectively?
I mean, we spend a lot of time in Google Analytics, obviously.
Yeah.
And then our social media manager works on Hootsuite, and really it's Salesforce is kind of like that's the dashboard, that's the home base. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. All right. So you've been at the Webbies for a long time. Sounds like a lot of other people have been at the Webbies for a long time too. But with being at any organization for a long time, honestly, all of us being humans and being at any organization for like an hour, everybody makes mistakes. So like what can you what is, a hiring mistake that you've made in the past, kind of what was that and what has it taught you that others might be able to learn from?
I have spoken a lot about the decentralization of marketing at the Webby Awards, but actually at one point several years ago, we decided that we wanted to try centralizing it. And so we kind of like set up the marketing department and hired someone to run it. It didn't necessarily bring in the results that we were hoping it was going to bring in. And actually it kind of slowed things down a little bit. So we pulled back and kind of went back to the decentralized model, which works.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, the way you've described the model that y'all run, it sounds very much like y'all hire for creative specialists. And then like as part of what they're doing, they need to think about marketing. They have certain KPIs, but you have an editor, you have creative directors, you have producers. It's all really bucketed under that. How can we make creative things well, which I think honestly plays well just to the internet today, which is, people creating things in order to actually build those connections. But is that like a good kind of synopsis of how the team works, those specializations within creative areas of focus?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Awesome. Another question here from an anonymous attendee. Y'all can put y'all's names in. Also, I will say this one more time. Ask questions anytime. We are coming up to almost the end here. So if we have questions, get them in. This one's hard and open-ended, but I'm interested to hear what you say, which is what's great marketing to you?
I mean, I think I think great marketing is something that really resonates with the audience that it's targeting to. So whether in terms of B2B, it's like, okay, well, how do we help improve what you're doing, make your team better, or make your team better at what they do, or help your team in what they do and help you achieve your goals. And then if it's consumer marketing, it's kind of reaching you in the way that makes you feel something. Whether it's like, oh, that's hilarious and I'm laughing because I'm feeling like that's really excellent copy, or makes you want to like join a movement or purchase a product because it's purpose driven and it's doing what you believe in the world as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that leads right on into this other question, which also open-ended in terms of, what are you doing? What is the Webby Awards doing to contribute to a better world? And I do want to hear, your answer and thoughts on that. But one thing that just struck me was, remembering that the Webby Awards is an awards program, and there are so many people working really hard behind a lot of these brands to bring these pieces to life. And I think one thing that we hear this in all organizations, I say it a lot too, in one way or another, but it's important to celebrate the wins. And it's something that, especially within, some organizations, just often isn't done often enough. And I think from that perspective, the Webby Awards is kind of that, that marker that you get to say yes, I did a good job and I got awarded for it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, and that feeling is amazing for people, and actually get it winning, thinking about the impact that winning a Webby Award can have on an organization or on a person a creator, or a podcaster, or somebody that has been hustling really hard to do a great job. Winning a Webby Award can change their lives, and that sounds like a bit of hyperbole, but It leads to new business. It gets people a ton of exposure. We get a ton of press, and it can lead to it used to be that a Webby Award could lead from a blog to a book deal, but actually I think it's probably more from a podcast to a book deal now. But we also use our platform in a way to raise awareness for certain things that we find really important as well. And I can't necessarily talk about some of the stuff that we're about to announce, but I can talk about stuff that we've done in the past. So last year I worked with vote.org to encourage millions of people to sign up to vote for the 2020 election. And we always use our platform to promote a social movement of the year. So the year before last, we honored Greta Thunberg with our social movement of the year, and kind of gave her and her Fridays for Future campaign a platform and an in with the most influential people in the industry to kind of speak to them and promote what we think is a really important cause.
Yeah, I love that. Well, so this last question we have here is, what's your favorite moment or your favorite thing that you've celebrated, since starting 10 years ago? It sounds like those two campaigns sound like some of those things, but anything in particular pop up for you here?
I mean, the social movement of the year is also always one of my most favorite things that have happened at the Webby Awards, but I do have my favorite moment from my time at the Webby Awards, which I could tell you about.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't even remember what date it was. I think it was 2016. I think it was the 19th annual Webby Awards. We honored the inventor of the GIF file format, a man called Steve Willite. Steve had a stroke, so he couldn't speak, but we knew his 5-word speech before. So we knew his 5-word speech. We never know anybody's 5-word speeches, but of course we knew his because we had to do it in GIF file format up on the screen. We had David Karp from Tumblr present to him. David Karp had just sold his company for $1.1 billion. So it was a big moment for Tumblr, and of course Tumblr was the place for GIFs. So David did the presentation, and Steve stood up and walked to the stage, and the whole show, everybody just leapt to their feet. And I was sitting next to his wife, and his wife leaned over to me and she said, "It's about time." And it was just such an emotional moment for me. And his 5-word speech was, "It's pronounced GIF, not GIF."
I was about to say, hold on, I remember that moment. I was working at Mashable at the time, and I remember covering it. Yeah, it was huge.
That would have been all over
people. I tell people all the time, I'm like, no, it is GIF. The creator said it was GIF.
You wrote about it in the New York Times. It trended on Twitter for about 9 days. And then it's good because you're right. The debate comes up all of the time, and we have it from the inventor.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm out of questions, but I mean, anybody who is here in the audience, again, feel free to send some in. We can always follow up with Claire as well. But Claire, I mean, thank you so much for all of the amazing work that you do at the Webby Awards, that you've been doing for over a decade now. The Webbies have been a very important part of like my internet life. And so it's just, it's always fun to see them continue to grow, see them continue to inspire, and also know and learn that it is a relatively small team behind the scenes, making it all come to life. It's very cool.
Well, thank you, Tracy. And we are extremely excited to be partnering with MarketerHire this year as well. So thank you for having me, and thank you for your partnership.
Of course. Thanks so much, Claire. Bye, everyone.
Bye.